Okay. Should we begin by introducing ourselves, guys?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
I'll start. Okay. Hi, guys. Welcome. Thanks for having us for the chat. My name is Michael Chandler, and I live in Cape Town. I run a store and a gallery called Chandler House, and I'm an artist in my own right. But I'm here, I think, to talk about the way I live with art. I love art. I've got lots of it. You can never have enough. So that's who I am. And now we're going to cross over to Paula Roux. Tell us about yourself there.
Okay, so I am a mom of 4 children and interior decorator and art lover. I love collecting art. I'm very enthusiastic about it. I've run numerous building projects. I love interiors and traveling and anything that inspires creativity and beautiful things that South Africa has to offer, and all our amazing artists. Yeah, and next is Ockert.
Hi everyone, I'm Ockert Dixon from Jacket Interiors. I currently live in Basel. Also an art lover and an avid collector. Also have a passion for South African art, and started Jacket Curated with my previous partner who now lives in Sydney, and we're looking at introducing these arts and South African suppliers to that market.
Cool, thanks, Ockert. I didn't know that about the art thing. That's really exciting. Okay, so we are talking about art. People can just feel free to type in a question if they have one, and we'll try and get to that later. I'm going to kick off this conversation about art today by just making it very real. Guys, your house is on fire, and you can only take one piece out to save. What's it going to be? Paula, let's start again with you.
Okay, so it's the piece that was probably the biggest investment I've made in art so far, which is a Karen Scrimger piece, which is this beautiful pink painting with the most incredible detail in it. And Karen only does about 4 paintings a year. So every one of her pieces, you know, the amount of effort that goes in there is just unbelievable. And I bought that painting because every single thing on it means something to me and reminds me of maybe something from when I was small that I saw in my parents' kitchen. Yeah, it just brings back a lot of memories, and it's got pride of place in my kitchen. It is quite large, so I would have to try run out the door with it on my. I'm not sure how I would get out the house, but that is, yeah, it's I love it. It's my best piece. Yeah.
Cool. Ockert, how about you? House on fire. You've got 30 seconds.
It's a bit of a difficult one for me, I think, but there's so many pieces. But I think at this point, I have a very big Jimmy Law with this face in sort of pinks, which is very colorful for me because I usually just go for sort of black and whites. So also, yeah, quite a big one, which I would have to grab off the wall and run after.
Ockert, you said at the moment, do you think that would change if I asked you the same question in maybe a year's time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you, Paula?
Yeah, I find the art in my house, some are my best for a few weeks, and then I start to love the more. It feels like the more you look at art and the more you see it every day, it's just you see things you haven't seen before, which is interesting because you've had it maybe on your wall for a year. But it's different life experiences and the different stages you're in your life. You start taking other things from it, so it definitely does change.
I don't know if you guys did that in lockdown when there was all this extra time going around, but I don't have Netflix, so I actually sat on my sofa with a cup of tea, and I would just look at one painting or one print work as if it were an episode of something, and just actually look at it, because our lives are so busy and so distracted. We seldom get the time to actually just take the time to look at what the artist was doing, his choice of colors, his line work. Is there some narrative that we maybe not picking up? So I found that really quite an indulgency, and a bit embarrassed to admit that I've never done that before. and probably haven't since because life is back to hectic.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting experience to look slowly and properly.
I find if you put your, sorry, Ockert, do you want to go?
No, go.
If you put certain pieces in, like say in your kitchen or in your bathroom, and you can also rotate that art, something you see every day, I find then you do look at it. You must make sure that if you rotate your art and just and put it in key areas in your house, you definitely will be forced to stare at it a lot more often than if it's in a passage or something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as I sort of walk through the house and sit in different areas, you do sort of find, oh, there's something else I haven't seen in that painting. So it definitely evolves as you go and sort of sit and look and pass it. So
yeah, cool.
Sorry, Paula, do you want to? I think you wanted to ask something about starting a collection or something.
Yeah. So, how would you go? What would you advise people? Where would you advise people to start when they don't know anything about art? How do they actually just kick off their art journey?
I'll start. To me, I just think it's something that you're going to be living with. So, I mean, you can think of it in many ways, but for me, it's very personal. So I don't think you need art that is necessarily valuable. It could be something you found or something you inherited that just brings you a lot of joy. So I'm a bit more of a nostalgic, sentimental collector. And there's no reason why you can't buy something really great off auction that does tick those boxes. But I think the important thing is to love it. That overused, does it spark joy kind of conversation, I think is very important. And if you just do that, I think you build up a collection that's incredibly personal and unique to you, which I think is the most exciting thing of all, more than the artworks necessarily on their own. Yeah, so that's kind of where I collect, and it changes as I change too, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, I think from my point, it's also a very personal thing. It needs to be something that you love and that you're gonna want to look at every day. It doesn't help to kind of just fill the walls in one day, because that kind of defeats the object of having a collection. Because I think if you just run out and fill the walls, that's what's going to happen. It's going to look like you just went to one shop and got it all done.
Or it looks like somebody else did it for you, which is also not the point.
Yeah,
that is the most depressing thing of all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instant collection.
Yeah, which I don't think. Look, from instant collection, from my point of view, in my work, sometimes, depending on the project, you kind of have to do the instant collection. But I think then it's someone that's not necessarily interested in art as such, but wants to just have that finished look and that layer finished and done with.
Which is also fine to have to.
Yeah.
If you want your house to have some points of interest on the walls.
But I find when we do that kind of thing is to kind of also just hold the client's hand and try and get a collected feel going, whether it is done over a 1 month or 2 month period, but that it's not just bam, 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 there, the art's on the wall.
Yeah.
Listen, sometimes you get it lucky. I don't know about you, but I'm quick to heat, quick to cool. So I can get really excited about art, and if I had the budget, I could easily put together a wall that I love. I do think it is most exciting when you build up a collection incrementally and slowly, because things start happening and it takes a kind of life of its own. And when you bring something new into what's existing, it changes what you've already got. I always relate it to a stew. You're making this amazing stew. You're not necessarily going to add oyster sauce to like a really nice beef stew. Maybe you will, but that might just kill it. And so you got to be whatever you bring in is going to change it. And I think that's quite exciting because, just your collection kind of evolves with you as a character, as a person.
Yeah. Yeah, I also have come across where where clients really just prefer to wait for the perfect piece on the wall, which at the end of the day, I think I agree with as well, rather than just putting something there.
Yeah, I think as far as advising people go, it's very handy to have a budget. I think if you are wanting to start an art collection, I think you need to decide on what you're going to put aside, and then if there is a piece that is pretty expensive that you want to get, then you say, this is going to take me 2 or 3 years or maybe more, and you have to put that money aside, because if you start just buying art randomly, you'll have a beautiful collection, but if you're still hankering after that one piece that you maybe saw 10 years ago, or that specific artist that you always want to buy, you have to be quite strategic about it. You have to put aside money and aim to get that. Whereas if you buying too many things on the side, you're not going to have enough for that one thing when it does come along. So.
There's an also lovely story I had through selling art at my store and gallery. Well, there's a beautiful John Moore van Gogh print, a lino cut, I think it was, and someone really wanted it, but they couldn't quite afford it. So, but they wanted it so much, they were prepared to make a plan, and we helped them, obviously paid off over time. And I think you love something so much more if it's harder to get, or you really have to make a plan.
Yeah, for sure.
I know for me, if there's some things that I've really wanted, it's like so out of my range, but if I just kind of relook at things and work them around, you can just make it work. Just make it work, and then you love that piece completely. It's just gives you all the, because you wouldn't go to that much trouble if it didn't really appeal to you.
No, and also maybe along the way you decide, actually I don't want it that much. You can change, you can change your mind, and then at least you've thought about it. So that's what advice I would give.
Yeah. Ockert, what about you? What kind of questions do you want to ask us about the world of art and how we interact with it?
Well, I always have this view or thinking, you have the people that are collecting art for investment, and then collecting art purely for investment, and then people that's collecting for the love of art. What's your sort of view on that take of the two sides of that sort of approach?
Should I go, Michael? Do you want to answer?
Yeah, no, you knock it off. You go, Paula.
Okay, I'll go. I think when you start collecting art, it's well, I didn't know a lot about the art world, what kind of artists are out there, galleries, and then you start researching, you start going to openings, you start finding the artists that you like, and in that journey for me, I think I might end up going towards some investment art pieces, because your relationship with the art changes. But there's nothing wrong with having a good mix. I think to have your home, to have things that spark joy and are make you really happy. That shouldn't matter what artist it is, how expensive it is. That just needs to make you feel good and make you feel happy. But there's nothing wrong with, I think, exploring the art investment piece, because I think that comes with its own set of things that make you feelings. So it doesn't have to it doesn't necessarily have to be something that is beautiful to look at, because a lot of investment art isn't exactly typically beautiful, but you can you've got it in your collection. I think that is something that also adds value to your house.
Paula, am I correct in what you're saying, that you do have some investment pieces, but you also happen to really love them, and they give you all the feels? Or do you have some pieces that are a little bit more almost like bonds or stocks that you just kind of holding aside for a rainy day?
I've got one piece that is I guess slightly uncovered. It's people who see it are some people hate it, some people like it. I've got a friend who every time she sees it can't believe I've got it on the wall. It's a Claudette Schroeder work, which is a lot of her works are. I mean, this woman's topless and she's got like a skirt on, and I like it, but I can see how a lot of people wouldn't like it, but I really want one of her works, and I find all her other art really interesting. So and then I've got a piece that I think is really nice to look at. So I think the piece that maybe is slightly what do you want to call it? Could be uncomfortable for other people to see, then, or even for you, if you don't want to see it often, then you can put it somewhere where you don't look at it all the time. Then it must be somewhere where you are not, you're not around it often.
Sure. Or I don't know about you, but I actually have very few walls to house all my art. So
yeah.
I actually have a shelf in the store where I store my own art, and then when I rotate it, you kind of can mix it up a bit. So there are some things that you don't want to see all the time. I get that.
Yeah.
And there's some things you want to see every day. And I think that's the great thing about the collection is you can kind of rotate that with the seasons and your moods. And, if you're feeling quite down, maybe you want to bring out a piece that echoes that or lifts you up. So, I think also it's quite nice to shock your friends a bit, keep them guessing.
Yeah, and it's a conversation piece. I mean,
exactly. Which I think is a function of art, is to kind of ask some uncomfortable questions or bring out parts of us that we don't get the chance to.
I mean, if you look at Marlene Dumas' work, I mean, her work's incredibly valuable, but a lot of it is really, really shocking. Like it comes up on auctions and things, and I look at that, and I'm like, I don't know. There's some of it that I don't know if I could have that on my wall. It might that maybe would be like a stock or bond where I kind of put it away and then.
But there's also, I think, not all art has to be bought for a domestic thing. A lot of that work I think is very important in a public space where more people can interact with it. Sorry about that. Can interact with it, whereas in a home there's one person that's going to interact with that. Yeah. Yeah. Should I give you my feelings on this, Ockert?
Yes, please.
So, I mean, I really don't like this this question. I get asked it quite often, like, is this piece an investment piece? And I always say, like, do you take your empty wine bottle back to Woolworths saying, thank you so much for the nice wine. I had a lovely evening. It gave me all the feelings. But can I get not just my money back, but more? So I just find like you are getting such value from this artwork. The thought of like wanting to like flog it again and make money off that, I find like slightly vulgar. But I also understand that for some people it's a asset, like it's a stock. So there's a lot of art that I think does very well for that. It's personally not my cup of tea at all. But at the same time, I would love a Pierre Neef if I could find one that wasn't that expensive, that would accrue value in time, or a breathtaking Irma Stern. I mean, I just always loved her work before I even knew who she was or what her work was worth. So, I think it's you got to find your middle ground. And there are some pieces that I've got by artists that I bought ages ago that I'm not so in love with anymore, but I do know they're going to be worth something in 20, 30 years' time. And as they're this big, we'll find a little space for that. But I think to go out and do it quite aggressively just for that, to me, that's not what art's about. Art is all those things we spoke about a bit earlier.
Yeah. No, it's as you said, I think it's good to have a middle ground when you approach this sort of thing, and not to just necessarily purchase every piece as an investment. I mean, an example for me is, many years ago, I think 12, 13 years ago, I bought 3 Lionel Smith paintings, and they're tiny.
Okay.
Not knowing anything about him and actually now he's quite famous, and I think his paintings are quite expensive. But that's just something. So it wasn't approached as I want to buy that. I approach it always like I need to really love it, and it needs to, as you said, spark joy, and that's my approach usually on these sort of things.
So what kind of art have you guys bought lately, if you added to your collection, or something that in the past year or so that you just, wow, this is really cool? Or for a client, or it doesn't have to be necessarily for you.
Yeah. No, well, I think my favorite thing I acquired this year was, or in the last year, was the Deborah Bell sculpture. And it comes back to something that I think, Paula, you mentioned is, it's something that I've had my eye on for a very long time, but I couldn't necessarily afford right away. So made the plan and eventually got to it. And I happened to be in Cape Town at the art fair, saw it, loved it, bought it, and had it shipped over.
And you were ready for that time, which is you had it in the back of your mind. I had
everything came together.
Yeah, I had a friend who, many years ago, I think it must have been 15 years ago, when Deborah Bell just started becoming a little bit well known, and I said to her, who should I keep in mind for when I want to buy a painting, and she said Deborah Bell, and it's a big regret of mine that I never bought that 15 years ago, because her work just went, it's incredibly valuable now. So that's also just you've got to keep your ear to the ground, and also listen to the right people at the right time, and then make a call, because then I could have ended up with a Deborah Bell if I'd bought it 15 years ago.
Hindsight, eh?
Yeah, always. What have you bought, Michael?
Well, I'm not quite in the Deborah Bell league, but I've fallen in love with, you describe his work as chocolate box. It's really kitsch and sentimental. They're these beautiful little Cape landscapes. I think he was born in, I don't know if I should be giving away his names, because they're fairly affordable and I don't need any competition. So I'm going to just be a bit mum on that. If you look through my Instagram, you can work out who it was. And I actually was just kind of collecting them really without too much discretion. If it was by the artist and it was in a price range and of a Cape scene, I bought it. But now I'm whittling it down to, it must have the ocean in and the mountains. To me, that's like a really important part of my, I think, life so hectic. To look at a little landscape that's just peaceful and quite sweet and charming gives me that feeling that I'm looking for at the end of the day. And interestingly, behind one of them was an inscription. I think it might have been a newspaper clipping, I can't remember, and told how this guy actually, I think, had a stroke and then threw himself off the promenade to commit suicide ages ago. And, then all of a sudden these little cute and kitsch artworks somehow take on quite a depth to them. And when I look at them now, I don't just see pretty little paintings, but maybe this guy that struggled with depression. I'm not a depressive person, but I have mood swings and ups and downs. And so I look at them now with a little bit more kind of heart and soul, the bit where I really connect with them. And so the idea is to build up a small little wall of them. Actually, they'll go above my bathtub and do a new bathroom. And so when I lie in the tub in the water, I can literally look at the sea, because I can't swim in Cape Town. It's too cold. I'm from the wild coast. So for me, that's definitely, and it'll be an ongoing thing, I suppose, until I hit that capita of I have enough now. Other people must also earn them. I can't have them all.
Yeah.
You,
Paula?
Michael, do you want to say one more thing?
Well, I wanted to know, we're talking about value and stuff. Are there any things that you have in your home that have absolutely no resale value that you hang and exhibit alongside your other pieces? I mean, it could be kids' drawings or
I've got a lot of those in my
Okay. How do you exhibit all your kids? You have 4.
Yeah, they're all stuck in the playroom, just from ceiling to floor, just all their art. I've just stuck it everywhere. And it's nice to look at it. Yeah.
Okay.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Ockert, you were, sorry, I was going to say to you the piece that the artist that I find really enjoyable to have and that I bought recently is the guided toy, his hairs that he does.
I love them.
Yeah, I looked at them for ages, and then there seems to be quite a when his smaller pieces come up, there's quite a demand for them. Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was I don't know how that happened.
Okay.
Oh, that disappeared. Yeah, his art's wonderful to look at, and it's interesting. So I bought the thinkers, which are the two hairs that sit opposite each other and are thinking.
Yeah, I also have some of them. They're really fun. I love them.
Yeah.
And you,
what do
Ockert,
you?
do you have anything that's maybe
not commercial? Yeah, I have a few little things that I've bought along the way, or that's been gifted to me, and I hang them in between everything because I love them. It's got nothing like they're not going to appreciate. I mean, there's also even like a Hockney poster that I bought somewhere, and
I love a good museum poster.
Yeah.
Or you could cut the bottom off too, and then if you frame it nicely, it actually looks really good. A museum poster. You take off the the bottom from where it's from.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think it's good to have various things. It doesn't have to all have commercial value.
Okay, I was thinking because you are now, you travel between here at Basel and South Africa. Is it a good idea for people to start looking at overseas art as well? Is that something that you've got involved in now that you live overseas?
I haven't really. I mean, I started getting into Art Basel every year, but of course with COVID this year it didn't happen. But it has sort of opened my eyes a bit more to kind of see what is around and what people are buying and what's going on. But I think it's so vast. I'm still really in the beginning stages of it.
Yeah.
But it's a nice and interesting thing to kind of have. And also being in Europe, I have a friend that lives in Germany, and she literally travels from art fair to art fair to art fair. So sometimes I join her and see. It's incredible to see. But I still have a very soft spot for South African art.
Yeah.
So,
tell us more about the project you're doing with your ex-partner in Sydney. That sounds really interesting and positive for the SA market.
Yeah, so Jackie Samios, we started Jacket together in 2006. And she moved to Sydney with her husband and her kids. And she's now, the kids are sort of all in school and she's got a bit more time. And we decided to start this thing called Jacket Curated. Initially, it started off with South African design products, furniture, accessories, ceramics, that sort of thing, and also then art. So we've literally, I think in the last month or two, sort of fixed up everything and ready to, we just busy with some market research in Sydney at the moment. But yeah, so the idea is to get South African product into that market and to help with sourcing and procurement for designers over there, pulling from these markets.
And do you think the reason why they're looking to South Africa, is it a price point thing? Is it the kind of artwork that's coming out? What does South Africa have that gives it a bit of edge internationally?
I think it's price point, and there's also, for me, or my point of view, is definitely from a design aspect as well. I think some of the designed furniture and products that's coming out of South Africa is really of such standard that it can sit next to many other things. So definitely those two things, price point and design.
Cool. Paula, do you want to answer or respond to any of the comments that are starting to come through?
I can't actually see any of them. I don't know. Wait, let me go into chat. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Just see.
Can you get there, Paula, or can I read it for you?
So Louis says there are two very important artists in South Africa. I will not name them. I acknowledge that I might simply not understand them or why they reach those high prices. I will not hang them in my house. Any ideas on that? Sure.
Well, I used to work in the auction world. That's where I cut my teeth.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that was a real crash course in South African art and the art market. It was very interesting at a very pivotal time when the art market really began to explode. And I'll be honest with Louis, there are some really high fetching price artists whose work I wouldn't have in my home either. I think it comes down to what you're into and what you enjoy. So I think, on the other hand, like, I did not understand William Kentridge at all, and I didn't understand the fuss until I saw his opera, The Magic Flute.
Yeah.
And literally in the middle of that, with tears running down my face, this man's a genius. And then obviously that was kind of like broke the glass door ceiling for me, and I could kind of get into that some more. So I do think it helps to know more about artists. Normally there's a pretty good reason why they can charge those prices. So, I'm not the biggest Francis Bacon fan at all, yet he's one of the most expensive selling artists on auction. But I can read into him and understand why he's so respected. I struggle with Jeff Koons quite a lot, understanding where that value comes from. But certainly for other artists, it does help to kind of explore and ask questions and go through that. Because there's normally a reason.
The exhibitions that were recently done at Norville and at the Silo District for William Kentridge, I think would have opened a lot of people's eyes as to what he's about.
Absolutely.
And that's where the opera and the music that he does. I mean, he is a genius. And only until I saw all of that did I realize how incredible his work is. And now I wouldn't mind. I would like to own a piece of his work. So. I guess Louis, if you research them more and go and see them in person and ask as much, you just got to gather information and then make a decision. I
think it's actually a really helpful thing is to, if you're at an auction house or at an exhibition opening or at the South African National Gallery or the Zeitz or the Norville, is to go up to people who are associated with that institution and ask them and just say, why is this, or how is that, or when did this begin? Ask those questions. I remember,
you can go on a tour. They can take you around. Get a curator for the gallery to take you on a tour, and they know everything about those people and why they've done what they've done.
I certainly enjoyed studying art history at University of Cape Town and really getting behind some big themes in major traditional art history. And the more you know, the more kind of layers and understanding you have, and it really does open up so much. Whether or not you like it or not, that's another conversation.
Yeah. And I think some people collect investment art to also leave to their families maybe one day. To leave to their children. So it's something that can definitely be inherited and passed on, and that's where the value can also come in.
Ockert, what do you think about Helen's comments? You can't have too many paintings on a wall. What does that mean for you when you're doing a project or a space? I tend to agree with Helen, although I think I am going into a new chapter of restraint, but we'll see how that goes. But when you're doing a project, how does it work? Do you get like one hero piece, or do you have any kind of maybe advice to people who are watching this of how you bring artworks into a space?
Yeah, it depends on the space, obviously, but to start with usually a bigger piece, but I find the space usually dictates very quickly whether you need like a big piece or a few small pieces. But coming back to Helen's thing, is I also do love doing like a collection on a wall where there's I think you guys saw yesterday on the wall that I was sitting, where there's just a mix of things, or just a whole wall of black and white photographs, all framed the same size, but all different sizes within the frames. So yeah, with restraint, you can't have too many.
But I think it makes a big difference as to how you display it. I think if you have got all these little pieces and different sizes, and I had someone come in once who just helped me arrange everything properly, and I could, like you said, just put it in all these small ones in a properly structured square. It can, especially people who like minimalistic homes and not things that are cluttered, it makes a massive difference as to how
I think sorry, Ockert, go.
Even if you have very different things, like a charcoal or a painting or a sketch, and it's all just framed in the same frame and then cluttered together in one space, that already makes a huge difference.
I think the big thing is that it's got to look intentional. It can't look like it just organically grew. Every 3 months, another little guy joins the lineup. You almost at some point, and that does happen, that's natural, but at some point, you need to take it all off the wall and then go, all right, let's
regroup.
Choose like the main one that's maybe the biggest, and then work around that and create the balance and the harmony that those walls. It's a bit of a challenge, but if you just play around, I think you get there in the end.
Yeah,
I think people mustn't be afraid to move their art around as well. I think that it's if you've got enough nails in the wall, which I feel like I've started doing, is you just, one day if the painting annoys me where it is, I just pick it up and I move it to another room, and then I put something else in its place, and it's awesome, and then it looks different for a while, and then I can move it again. So I think it's all it is a nail in a wall. So I don't think anyone must be afraid to just take it off and knock another nail in somewhere else and put it up.
You're inspiring me to go home, Paula, and move some things around there. Yeah, it's that lovely thing where I also like to move my furniture around between the seasons. Because in winter, you want the furniture a bit cozier.
Decorators then, because I do that like every 2 months. My husband will come home and he'll be like, what? Everything's different again. What are you doing? I'm like, no, I just felt like changing stuff. And then it's awesome. And it's just carrying some things around.
I found it incredibly helpful and almost restorative after this lockdown, been stuck in this tiny apartment. I couldn't really leave. I couldn't travel, obviously, but I just moved things around and I actually rehung all the art. What else was I going to do? And it gave me like that shift. It kind of changed the energy and the stagnation that I was feeling in every department of my life. And I just highly recommend it to anyone, with or without lockdown. Between the seasons, if you feel shifts in your life, I think your space should really echo what's going on inside your own world.
Well, that's another thing with lockdown. How do you think that's going to change how people display their art, how they buy art? I wonder if it's had a big impact on the art world in general, besides not now being able to go to an art fair and actually look at the paintings.
I think people are definitely looking at their homes under a magnifying glass at the moment, since lockdown, and definitely looking at how they can change it and make it more happier, I suppose, because it is kind of the future. Like, a lot of people are working from home now more often and not returning to the offices. I read an article of office buildings, people clearing their offices in New York and just moving home or moving out of state, and not having seen they don't need to be in the office, so the home's definitely becoming more of a call.
I also, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel I kind of almost want less, and I want artwork that's less frenetic and more peaceful. I find that since lockdown's lifted, we're all working so much harder just to kind of make ends meet the way they used to. And at the end of the day, I don't really want to come home and see something that's going to take too much of my attention. I want something that is quite soothing, maybe leans more towards abstract or a neutral color palette. Very different to the kind of art I was interested in kind of adding to my collection a few years ago.
There's a guy, yeah.
Sorry, Paula, what's that?
There's a guy who's just asked an interesting question. They've said, during this unprecedented times, I find the price of artists to be too high. I feel like the artists will chase away customers with high prices in the long run and compromise the market. So there, I mean, it's where you said artists are struggling, especially over this time, but then now the clients or collectors are feeling that the art is too high, but they're not selling as many paintings. So that's also quite a tricky one.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah.
Well, I've said to my artists, would you rather be creating art, or would you be, do you want to do a show and 2 pieces sell, or would you rather bring your price down and you sell 80% of the show, which will help pay for bills and keep you going? Because as an artist, you don't want to be stuck with your work. You want that flow, that momentum. So
yeah,
I do think, if all sorts of other things around in the economy are kind of looking at their pricing going, I think we can come down or be more competitive. I think now's the time. We're in some of the worst times in living memory economically.
Worldwide.
And I think like some artists will be fine because there's some people, when a really good penny can come up, it's not going to be any fat off their bones. But
no,
I do think for young artists who are kind of emerging in the first kind of half of their career, it might be better in the long term to relook at that costing just to keep your art going out there. Because remember, every art sale, it's a business card on someone's wall. When I get a new work, I tell my friends, look at this amazing piece. I maybe Instagram it. So I think that is quite important. And I also love to give the advice of, your career is like a pyramid. The higher the pyramid, the more bricks on the lowest level. So you really want to get as much of your work out there as possible so you can build that really great foundation to build up. And it's a long term. Miro only became a full-time artist in his 40s, so I also think there's an impatience with kind of artists now. It's a lifetime journey
thing for sure,
and it can't be rushed, especially when things like this COVID have given us such a smack in the face.
But galleries can also, I guess, meet artists halfway and maybe drop their gallery commissions a little bit so that the artists and the galleries can still make money. Because
I think everyone has to look at that equation.
Collective.
Yeah. And I think people mustn't be afraid to ask for a discount on a piece. Just say, I guess it depends how, if there's 5 people waiting to buy something, then they're probably not going to agree to it. But every gallery or artist has got a little bit of leeway to maybe help you get that piece you want.
I think it's like an artist by artist thing. Some people are incredibly stubborn about that, and it's not an option. Where others are like, actually, that would be great. I do also have some thoughts about people who drive enormous motor cars, who kind of park outside and block out the natural light, and then ask for a discount on a framed original oil painting for a few $1,000. I'm asking if they ask for discounts at the restaurant and when they do their grocery shopping. So sometimes I'll actually just say point blank, I'm sorry, this is a young artist. She needs the money more than you and I. I cannot offer a discount. But if someone buys,
be fine with it,
I mean, that's the thing. Like you can only say no if you ask. So ask away, but also just have the grace that if they say no, you can understand where that's coming from.
Yeah.
Indeed.
What has Helen asked next? Here we go. Maybe with people shopping art online, it makes it more important or special when artists share their lives thought process becomes more than just a picture. Well, I think that's where the beauty of Instagram comes in, and you can follow an artist's journey and really get behind their method. Do you have any artists that you enjoy following Ockert that maybe you'd suggest we look at on Instagram?
Sorry, I missed that. Are you talking to me?
Yeah, just asking, are there any artists who you enjoy following their work and get like a real-time update pretty much in what they're doing?
Yeah, there are a few, but I'd have to look now.
It's okay. No, it's okay. It's on the spot question.
Yeah.
Michael,
there are
Lucy's
a
quite
few.
a... sorry, okay.
Lucy's great, yeah.
Lucy's an
Lucy's
awesome one to
of
follow
the-
because she, and I know she launched her shell box, and that was what she posted yesterday. So she kind of, keeps on up to date with her things. But you also get a glimpse when she was in lockdown. She did those beautiful sketches of her life at home.
Yeah.
Yes.
With her baby as well, and before, even when she was pregnant. And for me, as a mom, it was just really funny to see her character, like her sketches of herself and how she felt, and it was really cool.
And she's also must be commended for not making every post about her newborn child. Something that I've struggled with my puppy. But just normally when people become moms, obviously they want to share it. But as I switch off. I don't go on Instagram to see baby pictures 24/7. So full marks to her for keeping it about her work. And I think that's what she's really good at
keeping restrained.
Lucy, it's her surname is de Moyencourt, but on Instagram she's Lucy, Lucie, in the Wonderlands, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
But if you look up Lucy de Moyencourt, you will see her. And if you can't find her there, you can go through Shell Elegance, which is her shell page.
Is she back in your offices, or
no? So studio, for those of you who don't know, she has a little studio above Chandler House. So that's where a lot of the magic happens. But since she's had a child, she's found it much easier to work from a studio space that she's set up at home. Clay is very fragile and it's heavy, those big bags of clay, especially when you have a little one to worry about. So she comes in now and again, but certainly not daily, much to our sorrow downstairs.
Yeah. Cool.
Paula, you so you obviously work with lots of color and fabrics and things on a daily basis in your projects and things as well. So what is your approach to the art in your own home? Because I think because I'm got all this stuff going on all day long, I find that my house is predominantly black and white art. The base color is gray and there's very little color going on, just because I've got that going on all the time. So it's a lot calmer for me. What's your view or approach for yourself?
Yes.
And you, Michael?
So my study, I've kept very, very, very colorful. For some reason, and it's very busy, and for some reason, it doesn't make my brain too overwhelmed. But when we did our house, we painted every single room a different color. The walls were all, the lounge, dining room, everything was a different color, and I've realized that I think you've got to be careful about I was being brave and just because I always used to stick to whites and neutrals and then believe that your scatter cushions and your art, that's the color that you bring in. So I try to do something different, and I've realized that it's actually too much. There is a risk of having too much color in a house that you live in every day. We love traveling, and I mean, there's the hotels you go to, say in Amsterdam, and they're just overwhelmingly beautiful inside. But I've realized you actually can't take the hotels that you stay in. You can't transfer that decor into your own home because maybe some people can.
4 kids, Paula. And then that's a lot.
That's a lot of chaos on a daily basis. So I went and I actually painted a lot of the walls back to being white.
Okay.
Yeah, so I tried it, and I think for me, so you've just got to, your home has to be calming. So I'm not sure where I'll end up, but it was definitely too busy, and I think I'm going to veer a lot more in your direction than I thought I would. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So,
and you, Michael.
I
Michael,
think
your
I'm on the
house is,
same. I think I'm on the same path. So I'm renting an apartment for about another year before I move into the house of my dreams. And the apartment, it's got bright orange walls. I mean, I never knew I would do this. I loathe the color orange. So
Yeah.
a lot of humble pie I'm eating at the moment. And I had a salon wall with like 400 pictures on it, and it's just it was wonderful and it served its purpose where I was kind of in my late 20s, early 30s. But as I kind of get a bit older now and know myself a bit better, and I'm also changing, you know, I'm not little bright-eyed and bushy-tailed the way I used to be. I'm getting a bit older now, so I want a space that's a little bit more grown up too. And the other thing I wanted to say is I work in a store that is just full of color, full of art, full of people, full of objects. And it reminds me very much of that story of Chanel. She had a beautiful apartment in Paris, and where she entertained people in like the public spaces was incredibly rococo and gilded and extra, as the kids would say now. But her bedroom upstairs was just monastic grey, like the orphanages she grew up in. And it just stuck with me. And I feel like the bedroom in the new house is, I won't even seal the floors. I just want like this really like pared down white sheets,
earthy,
all of those
textures.
things.
Yeah.
And people say, what color are you going to paint the walls? And to be honest, I'm going to plaster them. It won't actually be a paint. It'll be the color of the material of plaster. I think also it might be COVID induced, where I just really want natural elements. I don't want any show and tell and tricks. I just want honesty and simplicity.
Quiet.
Yeah, so that's I'm on the same page as you. And the good news is I've got a lot of art that I can rotate now. So that's quite exciting. I'm actually doing an art timeshare with some friends because someone's like, Michael, I love that painting. And I was like, well, I can't hang it. So please borrow it, put my name on the back. And, you know, let it bring joy to you. Otherwise, it's going to hang up or it's going to be in storage. So that's another fun thing to do with friends. If it's not too valuable, you maybe don't want to share your Karam scrimshaw with your friends. But it's just quite a fun thing. You know, you get book clubs. Why don't we have art clubs, you know?
It's a very good idea.
Yeah.
I think you've started something.
Could work, but maybe there's a very good reason why it's not happening too.
Well, I mean, I think people have rethought things. So maybe that's an idea. You meet at somebody's house and you bring you have a size restriction, say you can only bring paintings that are so big, and then you swap.
Big.
And it's also a way to remember your friends. I actually think that could be a really fun a fun thing.
Keep the register.
Any more questions that we have here? How do you guys want to end this? Maybe with like, if we should if there's a piece that you have your eye on, or an artist who going forward in the future, is there maybe something art related and future plans that you want to bring in?
Oh, sure. I need to try and stop buying art. So I'm not sure.
But you know, the art world exists because of people like you who have this voracious appetite for art. So,
but then you only have so many walls. This is the problem. And I always said I'll never be the person that puts stuff in a storeroom. And
I know a client who's
maybe I'm going that way. I don't know.
Well, I have a client who has turned, I think, like a subterraneous pool room into an art storage room with shelving, very professional.
And that slides open.
All of that stuff. And every so often she calls picture hanging services, which are great if anyone's looking for them. And she rehangs the whole house, much like we were saying, we move the furniture. And I mean, it's not everyone has a room like that. I get that. But if you're in a position to, and they're great patrons of the art, they've got a great eye in terms of investment. I think it's a really fun mix of really gritty, edgy stuff and more traditional. And I think that if you can, that's how it's done. Ockert, anything on your horizon?
No, I don't think so. I've run out of wall space, and there is the odd thing in storage. So for now, I'm just looking and not buying.
Yeah.
But you know what's going to happen, guys? Because I also have said I'm not buying, and then you see that piece, and
Yeah.
before you walked into that room or saw it online, you didn't know you couldn't live without it.
Yeah, until you saw it.
And then you see it, and it's just, I've been looking for this my whole life, and here it is. I have to have
Yeah.
it. Can't quite afford it, but I have to have it. So good luck with that, guys.
With the not buying, yeah.
With the not buying.
Yeah. It's always good in practice.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm so far trying to keep from, while I'm trying not to buy anything, just looking at all the Strauss auctions. It's very cool to see, you know, all their things. And I mean, then you can just scroll through art for ages and get that art fix that you need, because it's always interesting to read about every artist, and it's always different.
Yeah. It's fun to go through the auction sites.
Yeah, and especially afterwards to see what the paintings were sold for.
It's really great to see how many auction houses are now online, and you literally can download the app to your smartphone and be at home bidding. It's quite remarkable how COVID has, I mean, I think some auction houses were doing it quite some time before, but a lot of people have come to the party now. I think 3 years ago, the idea of having an online auction was quite vulgar. It has to be in person. You have to see paintings. But I feel like there's a bit of a shift happening.
I wonder if people are more cautious, though, on an online auction than they are in a room with people putting pedals up. I wonder if that's, well, you would be able to tell us from your art auction days.
All I know is that if you swap the letters of auction around, it spells caution. So therein is the clue. Well, I think
don't lose your head.
Online there's a bit of a detachment, but you know, they're big egos, and I really want something. I'm going to make sure everyone knows, like, that paddle is mine. You know,
which you can't do on an online auction, which is better.
Yeah,
but not maybe for the person who wants to be seen to be buying it.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. But speaking of online, I see that Turbine is going online for their fair this year. So everyone go and check that out. I'm quite excited to see how that transition looks. And I think it's time for us to wrap up. Yeah,
we've got 22 seconds.
Well, okay. Thank you, guys. Nice to get to hang out, guys. That was really cool.
Yeah, this was great. Yeah.
Okay, it was good to meet you.
You too, yeah.
And we'll see each other on the Insta.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll see you in your shop, Michael.
Lekker. I'd love that.
Come visit Pogo.
And we have beautiful art at the moment, Paula. Lots of beautiful art.
Don't tell. I'm not coming to your shop.
Okay.
Great.
Everyone, have a good one.
Well.
Take it easy.
You too.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.